Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the best snowball champions for season 9. So these are going to be the champions that are the best in the early stages of the game. So if you want to play a champion that can stomp early and win the game very early on, then these are going to be the best picks. And for the format of this video, because I do want to cover every single role, we're going to be going over the top 2 for each role in the game. Alright, so starting off in the top lane, the first pick here is going to be Pantheon. So as you can see by Pantheon's graph there, his win rate is absolutely absurd in the first 20 minutes of the game. It's upwards of 60% if the game ends before 15 minutes. It's upwards of 55% in the first 20 minutes of the game. So Pantheon's early game is just super strong. His laning phase is great. Most Pantheon players do take the Ignite, which allows him to have a lot of kill pressure in the laning phase. He's got 2 point and click abilities, so it just allows him to very easily poke out the opponent in the laning phase with his Q, get a lot of poke off, and then once they do get low enough, you can just look to zone them, or if they end up staying too close and going for CS, you can just look to jump on them with your W, flash W, and it's just very difficult to mess that combo up with Pantheon, which does make his early game very consistent. And he's also one of the best champions at transitioning his early lead into other lanes. So if you get a lead with Pantheon, you can just roam bot lane at level 6, get them ahead. You can use an ultimate mid lane, get your mid laner ahead. So not only can you get yourself ahead pretty consistently with the pick, you can also very consistently get your other lanes ahead as well. And then for my second top lane pick, it's going to be Renekton. So Renekton has a very similar win rate graph as to Pantheon. You can see there that in the early game, it's absolutely insane. And then of course, once you do reach later on, due to the nature of the champion, it is going to fall off there. But for Renekton in the early stages, especially once he does hit level 3 and with the Ignite, your all-in is super good there. You're going to be able to get the press the attack proc off really quickly because of how your W works. So the damage output you have with Renekton at level 3 with Ignite is really good, and you can just really catch the enemies off guard as to how strong your all-in can be. And then once you do get that early kill with Renekton, it's so easy for you to extend that and snowball the early game, because if the enemy ends up walking too close to the minion wave, you just slice and dice through the wave. You gain a whole lot of distance with that ability. You just jump onto the opponent, point and click stun there, burst them out again, and you got another kill for yourself. So he's just a super good champion at getting a lead early and then extending it really well. He also does have arguably the strongest one item spike for any champion in the game at the moment. Spear of Sojin on Renekton just makes him a monster in the 1v1. Once you pick up that item, once you grab your T-mat as well, you just have a very strong duel there. So you're going to be able to get like multiple stuns off in the 1v1, multiple Qs off, and it just allows you to really take over. And you can even start winning 1v2s with Renekton once you do get to that item. So if we move into the jungle now, my first pick is going to be Xin Zhao. So Xin Zhao is still one of the strongest early game junglers. I do think that in previous metas, he was even stronger just due to the fact that in the old Scuttle meta, level 2 ganking with Xin Zhao was just so potent, and you can still level 2 gank with Xin Zhao. He still has the ability to do that, but you can get punished more in this meta if you do go for level 2 ganks and they don't end up turning out, but you can still do that. It's a still very good strategy on Xin Zhao, taking your red buff, going for a level 2 gank mid, level 2 gank bot lane. You can just allow your lanes to have a lot of pressure in the early game if you do get a good level 2 gank off. His dueling potential is also super good. He's similar to Renekton and Pantheon in the sense that his duel is pretty easy to execute. Like, you're not really going to mess up your duel with Xin Zhao. He doesn't have any skill shots other than his W, which is pretty easy to hit. So you're always going to be able to get guaranteed damage off with this champion, which means that if you do get a lead, you're going to be able to constantly play aggressive. You're going to be able to invade. You're going to be able to win 1v1 super easy. So he's just a great snowball champion overall. And then for my number 2 jungle pick, it's going to be Elise. So Elise right now is arguably the strongest AP jungler in the game. She's just a great jungler for the current meta because Elise is one of the best level 3 duels or level 3 all-ins for any jungler. If you can get the jump on the opponent and you can hit the cocoon on them, you're guaranteed to win that 1v1, which makes her ability to contest scuttle crabs at level 3 super good. You're going to be able to, a lot of the time, just force the enemy off the crab and it's going to be yours. So if they do try to contest you, you're gonna beat them in the 1v1. If they don't, you get the crab. If you do get a lead in the early game with Elise, then you can just look to spam gank, roam around the map. A lot of Elise players, what they do if they get a lead in the early game is they'll just go for Moby Boots Rush, and they just run around the map, spam ganking, get all of their lanes ahead, and it's just a really good strategy for you to get a great lead in the early game with Elise and just snowball your lanes out of control. And then if we move over to the mid lane now, in my opinion, the strongest early game champion in the game at the moment is Rumble mid, and the stats even back that up. If you take a look at his win rate graph there, it's upwards of 66-67% in the early stages of the game, which is just unheard of pretty much right now for any champion. Rumble's early game in the mid lane is so strong because his damage coming out of his E and his Q against squishy targets is insanely good. You're pretty much going to be able to win trades every single time in the early game with Rumble, because what you do is you go in with your Q. When the enemy tries to trade back against you, you use your W to absorb all of their damage, so you pretty much take no damage while dealing a ton of damage in the early stages, which just allows you to win trades. Once the enemy does get around half HP, if you're running Electrocute, you're running the Ignite, you can just all in them from half HP and just burst them out, get an early kill, and you're just gonna get so many early solo kills by doing this with Rumble. Now, because he does have great shove in the early game too with his Q, it allows him to have perma pressure in the laning phase. It allows his jungler to pretty much do whatever he wants. His jungler can look to invade because you can roam first to back him up. You can also do something with this pick to where you ward the enemy's red buff or you ward the enemy's raptor camp. You see when they're on their camps there, when they're taking their red buff, and you can just shove the waves in the early game, roam over to the enemy jungler's red buff, get a kill on him. It's pretty easy to get a kill if you do that with Rumble, because chances are the enemy jungler is going to be low HP. You're going to have the Electrocute and the Ignite with Rumble, so you're going to be able to kill them pretty much every single time unless they do escape with like a sliver of health. But it's a really good strategy as well to use, and you can just get yourself ahead while putting the enemy jungler very far behind. And then for my second mid lane pick here, this one probably isn't too much of a surprise, and it's Talon. So Talon's pretty much always been known as one of the strongest early game mid lane champions. He's got the highest first blood rate for any champion in the game, if I'm not mistaken, upwards of like 35% or something crazy like that. The chances of you getting an early kill with Talon in the laning phase is super good, especially if the enemies disrespect you, because your WQ Ignite auto combo pretty much 100 to 0 somebody in the early game. So it allows you to just very easily punish players that are not respecting your early damage. And if you can get that one kill in lane because of Talon's kit and the fact that he's got great roaming potential, you can rush a Tiamat, you can go Moby Boots, you just hard shove the wave in, you roam around the map, get your other lanes ahead. So he's a pretty similar champion to Pantheon in the sense that you can have a strong laning phase, you can get yourself ahead, and you can also get your other lanes ahead as well. Now if we head down to the bot lane, the king of the bot lane in terms of early game snowball potential is definitely, without a doubt, Draven. Draven's kit is basically built perfectly for snowballing the early game with his passive and the fact that you do get bonus gold when you do cash in on kills after you do get your passive stacks up. It just allows him to get a ton of gold in the early game. With that gold, you're going to be able to get an early Bloodthirster. If you get an early Bloodthirster, you're going to be able to pretty much duel any other AD carry in the game. You're going to win pretty much every single 2v2 in the game once you grab that item as well, and it just allows you to have perma pressure in the laning phase. And then my number 2 AD carry pick is going to be Tristana. So Tristana is an AD carry to where if she does get a slight lead in the early game, then you can just play so aggro with this AD carry because of the way her kit works. The fact that you do have the gap close there with your W that does damage. If you do get a lead and you know your damage limits, you can just jump in with Tristana, pop your bomb on the opponent, auto attack them with your Q there, and if you have the damage to just burst them out, then you can just constantly play super aggro, use your W to jump in, get a ton of kills in the laning phase. And Tristana, similar to Draven, just super good paired up with any aggro support, because if you can pair with someone like a Leona or a Nautilus, if they just hit one CC ability in the laning phase, then the enemy is just gonna die due to the raw amount of burst potential that this AD carry does have. And it's also not to mention that her tower pushing ability is one of the best for any AD carries, which allows her to get a lot of turret plates in the early game, allows her to have the potential to get a first tower and to start rotating around the map. So not only does she have a lot of good all-in potential in the early game, a lot of burst damage, especially once she does hit level 6, she also has some of the best tower pushing ability for any AD pick. And then to round out the video, last but definitely not least, heading down to the support role, first up is going to be Nautilus. Nautilus is a support pick that's been very strong in the meta for at least a couple of months now. He's a pick that if you can hit one hook in lane with Nautilus, you're pretty much guaranteed to blow summoners, you're guaranteed to have pressure in the laning phase. So he's a support that's pretty low risk, high reward in that sense, and if you just can consistently hit your hooks with Nautilus, then you are going to have a very strong early game on him. And then due to the amount of raw lockdown that Nautilus does possess in his kit, his level 6 all-in is pretty foolproof. You press R on the opponent and you get a guaranteed kill. His early skirmish is also super good, so if you notice your jungler going for an invade, make sure you do try to back him up there. The chances of you winning an early skirmish, an early 3v3, is very high with Nautilus. And then his early invade is one of the best for any supports in the game, due to the fact that you do have the potential for 2 CC abilities at level 1 with your Q there, and then with your passive from your auto attack. So you very easily just lock someone down when you're invading, and they can't really react in time unless they flash your hook. They are not going to be able to escape if your full team is there. Hit a hook on the opponent, get your auto passive off, and they're just going to die instantly. And then lastly, to round it out here, my number 2 support pick is going to be Zyra. So Zyra does have a very strong poke in the laning phase. Her Q, her plants do provide her with a lot of pressure. She does also have a great all-in. If you can hit her root at level 3, then your burst potential there is great, especially if you are paired up with an early game AD carry who can follow up with some good burst damage. So someone like a Draven or like a Tristana paired up with Zyra is a very, very strong lane. Once you do get your 6 with Zyra, if you hit them with a root from your E, you're pretty much guaranteed to burst them out. You follow up with your Q, your ultimate, just all of your damage, and they're just gonna die instantly, especially if you do put the ignite down there on them as well. A lot of the time when you are playing Zyra, you're gonna have most damage in the game as a support champion, so you can do a really good job of just carrying your team through the early game. You can get a lot of kills in lane with Zyra. You can have a great mid game with this champion. You can look to team fight early on, look to contest dragons, look to contest objectives, because if you have that lead with Zyra, then chances of you winning those team fights are going to be very, very high in the early to mid game. So that is going to be it for the video. Those are going to be my top 10 strongest snowball champions in the game for season 9. Now, if you do disagree with this list, or if you think I should have had a different champion on the list, then be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I know that because I only did 2 champions for every single role, there's definitely going to be a few picks that I did leave out who could have been deserving of being on the list for sure. So somebody like an Olaf or a Lee Sin, very good early game snowball champions that I could have had on the list, but I do personally think that Xin Zhao and Elise in the jungle right now are just a little bit stronger than them. With that being said, guys, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.